There we are. Hello.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Linda and JC from ALTA Fitness in Canterbury.
Episode 12.
Episode 12. We're talking about posture, good and bad. So today I'm going to leave it a little bit more in JC's hands than in my hands because I'm going to be the model for today. But I will be asking JC some questions about posture. But we thought we would bring this topic up just because it's one of the first things that we do when we meet a new client.
Yes, on a basic assessment. But since we're opening back up on Friday, the government said we can open up. So
After a 3-week lockdown in Melbourne.
21 days.
21 days in, not that we're counting.
Yes. So when we come back in, so maybe some of our clients want to get a reassessment after doing nothing for 3 weeks, or a new client. So why is posture important? And it's more than just standing here nice and tall. There's a lot of other aspects to posture. So we're just going to show you a little brief example of what we do and why we do it, and a few little things that we work on after we find out some things about your posture.
Yes. So the first thing that we do with this assessment is we do look at, we do what we call a functional movement screen, which JC, you know more about that. It comes from the States. And we have some tools here that JC will take you through with me. And then usually what we do this first with our clients, and then we can do the bioimpedance scale and do some measurements. But this is really key to the way we work at ALTA Fitness, because if we don't know how you're moving, or when you do move, is there any aches, pain, stiffness, discomfort, then when we go to develop a program for you, we wouldn't be able to do it properly if we didn't know how you were moving.
We don't want to build strength onto dysfunction as per se.
Yes.
Because if you're walking in, you have your shoulder a bit sore, your knees a bit sore, your back's a little bit sore, or problems there. Usually it's related to your day-to-day posture, how you sit, how you drive.
And many people don't know that when they come in, they see us and we'll be getting them to do it. They didn't even know that they were sore sometimes, or they knew they were stiff, but they didn't know what was really going on and how it might have been something that was happening in our shoulder that was coming through to the other side of our body.
Yeah, and you tripped and bumped your shoulder 10 years ago and you've compensated. So there's many aspects of why you the way you are.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So let's start. You can demonstrate to me how you would start.
So Linda, I'm going to do the functional movement screen developed in America by Gray Cook. So
yes.
It was designed to screen a whole bunch of people all at once, because we can be really pedantic about looking about every little joint. But this is a little bit quicker and it highlights some major movement patterns. So I'm going to have Linda take off her shoes and socks.
Okay.
And I'm just going to move the camera a little bit closer so we can see Linda. There we are.
Okay, shoes and socks off. Why shoes and socks off?
So we can see how the ankles and the feet move. Because a lot of times we're in these supportive shoes, they're holding our feet up. So, and the feet are, I guess, a window to the soul.
Yeah.
So if there's problems with the feet, usually there's something going on upstairs as well. And we can see Linda's feet. They're nice and straight.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to have Linda hold the stick here, and she's going to just do a little basic squat and then back up. And we're just going to watch what happens.
So I'm just doing this as I would normally do, not how you're instructing me.
Okay. So we're squatting down, and usually somebody might say, "Oh, I have a little bit of pain in my knee," or
I do have a bit of a bung left knee.
So we can see the Linda goes straight up and down. The Linda will turn to the side. And squatting down. Well, why is this part of posture? You sit every day, you get in and out of a car every day, you sit and if you have problems moving, just squatting down, there's usually that problem in the knee or the back. There's a compensating area.
So often what we see, because I am quite used to going into a squat, but often what we see when people first come in, if we don't tell them what we're looking for or what we want them to do, is we might see this.
Or a slouch, a bending over, they don't bend in the ankles. If your ankles don't move.
Or their knees
collapse.
collapse in. or their toes aren't slightly pointed out.
or the feet collapse in. So those
Yeah.
all, if your feet go flat and your knees go in, what's going to happen to your back? Other problems. So the next part of the screening process, which changes things a lot, hands over the head, you keep them there, and you're going
Go
to
the side.
squatting down. What happens there? It's a little bit
Stiff in
harder.
my back.
Why is that?
Why do I feel stiffer in my back?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep my arms up this way. And do you know what I also then feel then? I do feel a little bit of pain in my right neck.
So with the turn it around. So if the hands in the air, so it's pulling all the back muscles are pulling on tension, and when we're squatting down, you get a lot less movement through the hips and knees, so they move as well, versus with the hands down below. So why is this important? It gets your hips are able to move a lot freer. And if you have problems here in our society, our upper thoracic are always stiff. We're on the computers all the time, driving and slumping. And in COVID, we're all a bit sad, so we're tight through here, a bit here. So we're not getting the proper movement all the way down. I'm a bit stuck there. So that's another aspect what we look at. How well your upper thoracic moves, because if it's that stiff, then it's going to go into your shoulders. You get frozen shoulders. You can't reach up.
But I've experienced that too.
So that's the first aspect we look at. How well you can squat straight up and down, hands over your head, straight up and down. If there's any deviations from left to right, we also take that into note. The next one is going to do the same thing with your feet elevated off the plank.
So I've got my heels onto the plank, just going for a normal squat.
Yeah. How's that feel?
Okay, that feels good.
A little bit easier, and then hands over your head.
That's much easier.
Much easier. Why is that? So you're creating length, what they call through the posterior chain. So your feet can move a little bit further, your ankles move, all the muscles through the back have a little bit more room to move. Hence, if you're in high heels all the time, that's going to shorten that area. As soon as your feet are flat, that area gets all under tension. That's why we get back pain. We're always tight and feeling tight through the back because it's always on tension. So,
which is another reason women not wearing high heels too often or for long periods of time. Big no-no. Moves our pelvis, changes the position of our pelvis.
All right, next little posture movement.
Sorry.
And over here. And then we measure where Linda's knee is, where your kneecap are. So we take it in inches because it was mentioned in America. Kneecap is
Middle of my kneecap or bottom?
just at bottom. So
Okay.
that's 16 and a half.
Oh, you got this one upside down. Turn this around.
Yeah.
16 and a half. Yep. Actually, I might just turn this around so people can see what we're doing here. Whoop. Okay.
Right. So Linda's going to place the stick just behind her neck. And toes are about a centimeter away from the edge. She's going to step over and back.
Have to really concentrate on this one. Over. Whoop.
And back. Is there any? So we're looking for stability in the hips. If the hips are uniform, if they're not really reaching over like a hurdler, if there's any wobbles through the spine.
So what we do often see, don't we, because I'm a big practice at this one, is we often see something like this happening. They might turn their foot inwards, or they might put their hip outwards to try and get it over, because they don't have that range of motion.
So range of motion through the pelvis, and ideally your pelvis should be like a bird bath that kind of floats along. Imagine your pelvis is a bird bath. Everything else moves around it, your lower back, everything's nice and stable. So if you're moving over, whatever you're doing, the pelvis is is stationary.
Yeah.
So Linda can do it again.
You want me to do it again? Do you want me to do it facing back to the wall this
Yeah.
time? Or?
Yeah.
So I'll come around this way?
Yeah.
Because we often like to look at both sides, so we're not just looking at the front of somebody, looking sideways. Whoops, I'm a little bit too far away.
Yeah.
See my toe then?
Yeah. So you can see the hips moving a little bit, so flexibility in the hips and strength in your core. Core is not just doing sit-ups, it's stability. So your core is holding you steady as you're doing other movements. And also we're looking at the head. Does the head move around? Because besides the core and the hips being stable, so is the neck and head should be stable. So you could be moving all over the place, but these two things are stationary.
Okay, what's the next one?
Next crazy one. This one's a bit more exciting. Okay. So Linda is going to step on 0. There's some numbers on here, and then 16.5. And we usually take a stick here, and we use it the first time just for stability. You're keeping your front leg and you're sinking down and back. If that's easy, then we have the stick. I will show you this way. Right here, the stick in the ideal posture, tailbone, shoulder blades, back of your head, and you're sinking down and up.
Yep.
Okay. We're just going to put it at an angle. Let's see. There we are.
Alrighty, so I'm putting my toe on the 0 and my heel on the 16.5.
Yeah.
And first of all, I'm just going to come
You're
down.
using the stick for balance on the floor.
On the floor.
On the floor.
Yeah.
Okay. And Linda does that easily.
And swapping legs.
Yeah.
So again, toe and heel, 16.5. Remember, to this side this time.
Yeah.
And did I do this? Did I do the same?
There we are.
Where's
So
the other
it
side?
doesn't. A lot of times we're seeing here that if people do it fairly well, but there might be pain. This highlights the mobility of the knee. If there's any knee pain, because we're going straight up and down. So if there's, and it's usually the medial part of the knee that usually gets it. Now try with the stick behind it.
Okay, I'll put my first.
Right, and then we're placing the stick
Whoop.
right behind you.
Okay, and then coming down. Back up.
So this highlights also balance, but also the upper thoracic. Because putting the stick there, it's not easy. Most people want to collapse forward.
So most people like going like this.
Yes, or you don't have the range of motion in your shoulders to be able to put the stick in there in the first place.
Yeah, well, that's another exercise too. That's another thing that we often look at, isn't it? It's how
Yeah.
close we can get.
Yeah, and the next
This is
one
the one
is
inside.
how close are your hands when you reach one over the top and over the back. So range of motion and flexibility through the scapula, shoulders, ribs.
And I have one side better than the other. I should say that I have one side better than the other because I nearly had a frozen shoulder, didn't I?
Yeah.
But I picked up on it. It took me a good probably 8 months to get the mobility back in it.
Yeah, it takes a while.
So yeah.
And it's not just the shoulder that's usually the problem. It's a lot of other things going on that cause that frozen
Yeah.
shoulder.
And I guess one of the things that I want to reiterate when we do this assessment is there's no good or bad, yes, there's some areas we can improve on. And sometimes it's just the way our bodies are made.
Yeah,
aren't
so
they?
it comes
So-
down to genetics and the way you're built. So there's some basic movement patterns that we do that you should be able to do. You should be able to squat and lunge and twists, but how you do it's just based on genetics.
Yeah.
Yes, genetics, heritage.
But you know, there's some things that we can really make
Wonderful.
big inroads in to make a lunge or a squat give you the strength to be able to do that day-to-day life.
Yeah.
That's what we're aiming to do. So if we know these areas that we're falling behind in, then we can work on improving them.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, what Jackson's our son.
Yeah.
JC, what's next?
So we did the overhead squat,
Done the lunge.
the overhead step, we did the lunge, we tested the range of motions here.
Yeah.
And now it's the flexibility of the hamstrings and core. I'm just moving this out of the road. And then it's going to have a lie down on the mat.
And sorry, we are so far away, it's very hard for us to.
Coming closer.
We're trying to yell as hard as we can.
Yeah. So Linda's having a lie down, nice and flat. And ideally, we're not doing the exact protocol from the functional movement screen. We kind of manipulate it as we go to the client as well. So, but this is the basic idea. Anyway, Linda's going to lift one leg up to the sky, keeping the other leg down. As you can see, she comes to 90s quite easily, and we'll try the other side. So good flexibility through the hamstring. Now we're going to change it. She's going to pull her toes towards her nose and try it again.
Just tighter.
A little bit tighter. A little bit tighter. And point your toes away and try it again. Easier.
Easier. What feels easier?
Yeah. But what we see sometimes when you flex your feet back, it usually stops right about there. That it doesn't like, oh.
You see that? Did you see that?
Yes, it's quite rare that somebody's going to come straight up and down unless they've done a lot of yoga. The next one is, it's a bit of a yoga flow. It goes through a up dog, not up dog, a yoga cobra, and then to child's pose, and then a push-up.
Okay.
Okay. So up here, I'm looking the flexibility of Linda's spine. Okay. She's coming straight up. As far as comfortable, long as there's no pain in the back, and then it flows back into child's pose. Is her spine nice and straight, or is there any curves? And then she's going to roll forward into a knee push-up or a full push-up. And here, it's not how many you do, but how well she does it. Is she even, using both arms? Let's see, you can see little deviations because she's right arm dominant.
Anything else?
Yeah. And the last one I look at is still lying on her stomach.
Oh, sorry, my stomach. Sorry.
Yeah, the last one. She's going to hands under forehead just to be relaxed, and bringing one heel to her backside. Yeah, and then do the other side. Nice and slow and smooth. Good. And we can tell that one goes a little bit further than the other. There. And when I don't know, it's very subtle, but when she brings her right heel to her hip, there's a little bit of a deviation in the hip, so you can tell that. Is that where you have knee pain on the right knee?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. So it tells me her right quad is a bit tight, maybe the hip flexor as well. That's pulling on the whole system, and then we get a twist, so you get back pain and compression of.
That's exactly right, because usually when I go to the chiropractor, because I go to the chiropractor once a month just to have an adjustment, and my hips are sometimes out as well. So he'll put me up on blocks. The same when I go to see the Oak Tree girls, they'll say, oh, your pelvis is a little bit out. So having a regular appointment.
So what happens if, in an extreme example, if you're tight in the right hip, usually you're here. I like to do an extreme example.
Yes.
So you're collapsing here, and you don't know that you're walking like that.
Yes.
Over time, it's gonna create. You're gonna, when you're 60 or 70, you're gonna have a hip replacement.
Or cut your head off in the video.
Yes. So that's a very quick snapshot of a functional movement screen. Obviously, we would take a little bit more time with each client, but those gives us highlights of the movement pattern. And if there's any red flags, that something that we can't work with, then we refer you on to osteo, physio, doctor, or whoever is the best to deal with that.
And also one of the things that I always do is just to when we're doing these exercises, I'm also just observing the client, just to say, well, how are they moving? But how are they standing when I'm talking to them? Are they standing like this with the hunch over? And I always point out to them, because we have some lovely big mirrors over here, that, I say to them, have a look at you. And their hands are facing forward. And I tell them to take a deep breath in, roll their shoulders back, and look where their thumbs are facing. They're facing towards them. So that again, it's just a posture issue. But when you point it out to someone in the mirror that their hands are facing forward and they realise how slumped they are, because look at this, I'm here to here.
Yeah, and it's not the military at attention with the ribs out and here like this. It's not up here too much. It's just relaxed. An ideal world, you have your ear over your shoulder, shoulder over hip, hip over knee, knee over ankle. But it's more of a relax. You're happy to be here.
Yes.
I always tell the clients, are you happy to be here? Versus, are you sad to be here?
Yeah. Or I say, piece of string pulls you up, and all of a sudden they go, imagine a piece of string pulling you up from the roof, and all of a sudden their posture goes from here to here. It's amazing. It's just a tiny little cue that can change you. So just on that, so we're going to continue on, because that's we've done the posture analysis and a movement analysis on you, or assessment. JC, what are some things that we do for the clients to say, well, okay, we want to get those joints moving well? What are some of the things that we do, like our mobility exercises?
To begin with, a lot of times it's loosening up our ribs. If you can breathe, because over time our ribs get a bit tighter and constricted through here. So if we can learn to breathe in standing tall, so this comes from Tai Chi or Feldenkrais or whoever wants to claim very relaxed, nice and tall. And as you're doing this, you're getting taller and taller. You're not screwing yourself into the ground. You're getting nice and tall.
It's really relaxing.
It's very relaxing. But you can do this at the beginning of a session, at the end of a session, anytime you want. But this helps getting things, especially after a stressful day at work.
Sometimes even just patting your body, just feeling that movement. And sometimes it's making your way up and tapping your shoulders and feeling across and then going back down.
So we can get some relaxed movements versus forced movements. A lot of times we see when they move, it's jerky versus a relaxed sort of almost dance-like flowing movement is what we're after versus a jerky rush.
And it is really a flow, isn't it? Because much of the work that we do, that when you start a session with us, we will have you doing those flowing movements. So they're not like jerky movements. There are nice flows. If we want you to open up your chest, we'll have our hands together and we're slowly going from side to side. So it doesn't stop, just a nice controlled flowing movement. Gets the joints moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not thinking about your posture all the time, but also not too rigid. Another one that we often do is a warm up on the mat. Is having a lie down, Linda.
Okay.
And having a lie down, if you're comfortable with that. And the knees, as Linda was talking about, a flowing movement from side to side.
Their palms facing towards the side.
And shoulders are down, so we're getting some movement not through just the lower back, but also through the ribs. And each time she's going a little bit further, feet still on the ground, as she's trying to push her knees towards me and reaching her arms away from the knees. So you're creating some length through here. So again, when I talked at the beginning, you want your core nice and stable and strong. Everything else moves around it. So if you do this too passively, you're just moving through the lower back. But if you move a bit further, you get a big stretch through there, and reaching the arm away, you get a stretch through the ribs. Of course, we want our ribs to do both. So just moving side to side, loosening it up, and then you can move one ankle over one knee.
I always like this one.
So a lot of stretching has become, instead of static, just touching your toes, or doing this one is becoming what we call mobility or flowing mobility. Or some guru people like to call it primal movements. So we're trying to create some space and length through all the joints.
And rolling up.
Yes. And eventually it becomes a little bit easier to up on up. Yes. And another one is, I'm going to change the view. Over to here, our fancy treadmill is creating some length again. Instead of hanging from a bar, you're grabbing onto the railing and you're slowly stretching out through the back. And you go as far as the shoulders will allow and your back will allow. So you're bending the knees a little bit, stretching through the back, letting the neck hang a little bit, and then rolling back up.
Does it feel nice?
It does. Feels a good stretch. Eventually, what you want to be able to do, this one's a bit tougher, is just hang from a bar.
Which bar are you talking about?
Any bar. You got a wood bar.
Well, that's the same as what you were doing, though.
Yes.
On this one.
Yes. We're creating some mobility through ankles as you squat down. And it's a little bit easier to control. And your hands, you can go down further, imagine that. And if you move your hands higher, and you're squatting down, so you get even more length to the back. And eventually you're hanging off the bar completely free.
Oh, I can't reach it though.
Yeah.
It's up there somewhere.
Yes.
That's for tall people where you need a stool.
Yeah. So those are just a few of our examples of.
That's right. So we hope you enjoyed what we did today.
Hopefully it wasn't too much gobbledygook and we didn't talk too fast.
No, but at least you get a bit of an understanding of what the postural analysis is that we do when you first come to somewhere like ALTA Fitness. This is how we assess you to see that we can put a good program together, because obviously if we don't know how you're moving, we couldn't write you a good program to help you reach your goals. So sometimes when we do these assessments, we realize that the clients come in for a certain goal, but we might have to take a step or two back, get things moving properly,
correctly.
And then once everything's moving really well, then you're going to reach that goal a lot quicker than if we didn't address it.
Because a lot of injuries when you do exercise are usually created from lifting overhead or trying to do some push-ups, and that's usually the shoulder joints, or lifting something quite heavy off the ground, and you're going to create some back problems through there if you don't have that strength, stability, and mobility through each of the joints first.
So it's not likely that if you came in here and you had some issues with your ankles and your knees and your hips, deadlifting is going to be a little bit further down your journey.
Yeah, or even
ever.
Overhead presses or bench press or whatever it is that we want to make you help you move well first.
And in a safe environment.
Yes.
And then you're safely looked after. So thank you for joining us today. We'll look forward to seeing you at episode 13 in another month's time. So keep an eye on our Facebook page and our updates and things like that. And you'll know what our next one is, because we haven't even worked it out yet. That's what we like. But we're just doing one once a month, which is a lot of fun for us. And it's nice that we're able to share what we know with everybody else. And we look forward to seeing you
next
again.
time.
Yeah.
All right.
And now
we'll push the button.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.